was 16 years old, my father and I paddled from Avalon to Manhattan Beach, which is a 32-mile paddle, just the two of us. And it was one of the last things I'd ever done with him. When this whole concept came together about circumnavigating the island, I jumped at the chance because it was something that I'd always wanted to kind of revisit.
Never being to Catalina before this trip, it was really hard for me to kind of get ready for it mentally.
I'd never been to Catalina Island. I have friends who are from there who have painted a pretty rich picture of growing up there.
I'd never paddled around an island.
Paddling around Catalina, absolutely arduous journey.
The Explore project takes to the wilderness in a whole new way to find a new kind of adventure that can only be discovered on water. From where we stand, there are no trails, just endless possibilities.
I'm from Honolulu, Kauai. Was born there, went to grammar school there. Third generation water person for sure. Grandfather was a surfer, paddler, outrigger, canoe paddler. Father, same thing. Pretty much spent 98% of my time in the ocean. Went up to the Sierras for a snowboard trip and said, I think I'm gonna move up here. And that was almost a decade ago. Paddleboarding was really the thing that gave me mental solace because it was the closest approximation to surfing and to paddling. And so that's what's kept me up there for 10 years.
I'm from an outrigger canoe background and a rowing background. Moving to Tahoe, not so much of an outrigger scene. Soon found out that there was a stand-up paddling community, race schedule, just a real movement going on. Hopped in a first race, it was on Donner Lake and showed pretty well and that was it. I was smitten. It was on.
I'm originally from Massachusetts, the North Shore, just by Manchester. So growing up was always on or in the water, especially on Martha's Vineyard. Ended up going to college in Reno so I could be close to mountain biking, skiing, and essentially Lake Tahoe because I love the mountains and I love the water. So it was a perfect mecca for both of those things for me.
The paddlers and crew head south from Tahoe through a snowstorm to meet the sailboat in Redondo Beach. The goal is to sail over to two harbors on the west end of the island and paddle around Land's End along a remote windward coastline all the way to the small town of Avalon. Resting just off the Southern California coast, Catalina has been a symbol of escape and adventure for centuries. With 90% of the island still protected by the Catalina Island Conservancy, much of its coastline remains rugged and untouched. Sailing toward two harbors, the evening is warm and the wind is steady. Perfect conditions for the journey across the channel. The paddlers are in the hands of the infamous Okie, a former Tahoe local gone Southern California sailor.
My name is Michael Okanowski, Okie for short. I've been sailing since I was a kid. Mostly started on smaller boats and got big into windsurfing. Pretty much anything that had a board involved I was into. Sailing was just something that I enjoyed immensely. And when I decided to move to Southern California from Tahoe, one of the first things that I thought that I needed or had to have was a boat. So I tried to make that happen and ended up here with this boat.
It was great to just get on the boat and just start sailing and get on the actual journey of it.
Just acclimating on the sailboat going out there really made you kind of slow down and getting into the rhythms of the ocean.
It's hard to imagine that the weather could be of any concern for the journey ahead. However, on arrival, locals in two harbors expressed their concern for our plans with gale force winds in the recent forecast. Sleeping on the boat, they rest up for the journey that lies ahead.
Waking up and just kind of like seeing that it was blue skies and sheet glass water. I mean, that's everything you're looking for when you're going on a long, multi-mile adventure.
I could not wait to get on my board and just start paddling, because I was excited to experience what Catalina had to offer from a paddler's perspective.
Today's journey will take the paddlers through the calm and protected leeward waters to Land's End. Rounding the tip of the island, they will have to face the open Pacific Ocean and make it to the campsite in Little Harbor before nightfall. Kelp forests below are teeming with life, and excitement is in the air as the day begins.
Wow, barracuda.
All of a sudden, Dave spots this cave, and we're like, let's go explore.
But that was a great start to a trip.
Marine biologist Ann Muscat from the Catalina Conservancy provides some further insight into the island's rich ecosystem and abundant wildlife.
I'm Ann Muscat, President and CEO of the Catalina Island Conservancy. Catalina Island represents the largest piece of undeveloped coastline that is accessible to the public left in Southern California. And the role of the Catalina Island Conservancy is to protect nearly 90% of Catalina Island so that its natural beauty and its wildlands are retained. As you paddle along, you are very likely to see bald eagles, which have been reintroduced to the island. We now have a resident population of 20 to 25 birds. The waters around Catalina draw in a lot of bait fish. You can see thousands of sardine and anchovy and topsmelt. And those bait fish draw in larger game fish. So you'll see things like barracuda, tuna, yellowtail, marlin. It's a fisherman's paradise as well as a nature observer's paradise.
Rounding Land's End, it's a whole new world with a pronounced jagged coastline carved by years of a relentless sea. Strong currents and gradually rising swells threaten to leave the paddler stranded by nightfall. Arriving in Little Harbor, they find a well-protected bay with campsites along the water's edge.
Coming around the corner, it was kind of a welcome relief to the day. It was that we're here, we're at our destination for the evening.
My name is John Meffert. Been here on the island for approximately 17 years now, and I'm one of very few stand-up paddlers. I was really thrilled to hear that we had a group coming over to do this paddle around our amazing island. It was pretty awesome watching them come up the coastline and come in paddling into shore.
They were really, really excited to see us and really excited to turn us on to what they do in their daily life and show us the good areas, where to spear. I mean, very warm and welcoming.
Catalina local paddler John Meffert gives a warm welcome, and they take some time to explore the world below the surface.
Catalina's diversity of marine species is great, and one group of animals that you'll be able to see in the water, near shore, small bottom-dwelling sharks, eagle rays, manta rays, bat rays, leopard sharks, horn sharks. There's all kinds of things that are very common.
The one I saw was huge, and I couldn't believe it was just swimming below us, just being, part of a whole different world. It was incredible.
Little Harbor is once again a place where you can totally lose yourself. You don't even know it's there until you're upon it. And the sea life there, snorkeling and paddling around it, is so alive.
Lighting a fire, the paddlers enjoy the cool evening, make dinner, and head off to bed. A chorus of frogs from a nearby marsh provides a steady drone to the crashing waves. The far-off glow of Los Angeles can be made out to the east against the moonless dark night. It's peaceful knowing that something perceived as being so vast and so significant has faded behind the distance of one day's journey.
Wake up, son, there's a storm and it's pumping. Hit that deck, grab your bucket, start your dumping. Otherwise, son, you'll be sleeping.
The sky was gray and the waves were less than pleasant looking at. It was rough water, it was rough seas, and I was less than stoked, but ready to take on the day and ready to see what the day had to bring us. I knew we had to go a long way, all the way to Avalon.
The predicted storm had finally arrived, giving reason to consider abandoning the journey by heading back to Two Harbors. Leaving the protection of Little Harbor, the paddlers need to outrun the coming storm around the eastern tip of the island to Avalon.
We couldn't really see what was going on around the corner. The harbor definitely picked up some swell, and we could definitely feel the temperature was chillier because the wind was blowing around.
As soon as we got out of that harbor, it was like a reality slap. It was like, holy cow. It was mocking as far as winds go, and we had a cross current that was running perpendicular to the swell direction, which is absolutely the antithesis of what you're looking for. And so it was super challenging. And then with all the gear and everything, it was tough going.
We really hit the swell head on, and then right as we turned the corner, the washing machine started, where the swell is coming up off the cliff and then back on us. Just a lot of water current moving out there.
I just felt like I was paddling and going nowhere. I kept doing the look over at the rock. Slowly but surely I was going somewhere, but with the waves and just not too much experience in ocean paddling, it was just it got really frustrating for me. Every paddle takes you in a new direction. The waves are throwing you in different directions. There were big swells and water was washing over the front of my board.
Everyone was kind of vacillating between abandoning and going back to Twin Harbors. And I mean, this is something that I had aspired to for a long period of time, so it was something that I wasn't about ready to give up and give up the ghost. I wanted to keep going in a forward direction, and I'm like, let's just power this out, man. Let's just persevere and just see how far we can get. And so Whitney decided to hop on the boat because it was absolutely life and death scenario.
Hey, we need to check on Whitney to see if she can still hang in there.
Just a total mixing bowl of waves and movement going on. So that's when I was like, I'm gonna go in. I don't wanna go in.
They're always concerned when the weather takes a turn for the worse and you've got a bunch of people you're responsible for. The gale force warning was in effect, so I rallied everyone and said, hey, we need to get the gear on the boat, load it up, and at least get underway and try to beat it around the island. It could turn pretty ugly pretty quick.
The paddlers are up for the challenge and decided to press forward through the growing wind and swells.
Once we saw the sailboat float off into the distance, we realized what we were up against, and hit some major headwinds and currents. We saw a couple big sharks out there. That was kind of like a reality check as far as hey, if we do fall in, we don't have a sailboat, we don't have walkie-talkies, things could get gnarly. But the same thing, it's just if you persevere and just kind of plug away and kind of ignore the potentialities and kind of remain in a positive frame of mind, you just kind of make it. And once again, island microclimates, as soon as you get around one point, then you're headed towards another whole different experience. And that's what we had,
The choice to head toward Avalon pays off as the paddlers reach China Point. The storm was falling behind and the wind was now at their backs. Moving quickly toward the eastern tip of the island, they make up for the morning's lost time.
The wind had come around and the island had moved just in the perfect position to set up for a really nice downwinder.
And you're just like, wow, here we go. Now we get a nice little cruisy tour back to civilization. Catalina definitely served up some rollers.
There was this couple mile, 3 mile stretch where the window really lined up, and just had a lot of fun. For me, it's one of the most fun things you can do in paddling. The rollers were going, and I was really able to pick up and connect a couple. Just pure joy for me. That's the apex of the sport for me.
Nearing the eastern end of the island, the paddlers make a discovery that takes the excitement to a whole new level. Seals and sea lions are not uncommon along California's coastline. However, the numbers encountered on Catalina are far beyond what could ever have been expected. Arguably some of the ocean's most playful creatures, they join in the journey, barking and darting past the paddlers. This might also provide a bit of an explanation for the 15-foot great white shark sighted earlier in the day.
There was probably 3 different colonies, of which there were probably a good 100 seals there in each colony.
In mass, these seals and sea lions just rushed off the beaches, off the rocks, and out into the water. A cacophony of barking and snorting and noises, just moving all around. The water was just boiling with seals and sea lions.
If you're paddleboarding and you see a group of sea lions and you just quietly drift into them, they are amazingly curious animals, and they'll come up to you and jump all around you, and it'll be such an amazing experience.
Definitely very intimidating. They're very large, some of them.
Sea lions sometimes can appear aggressive, but it's mostly because they're very playful. So they will swim at you and veer off at the very last second. And it will make your heart jump. They are not interested in hurting you. They're just curious about who you are and what you're doing in their world.
The water right there is clear enough, and just could see that they were more about checking us out, I think, than trying to scare us away.
Come on, guys. Let's go for a ride.
Oh, it was really neat seeing something like that in real, in nature and National Geographic type stuff.
Great magical experience for sure. Probably one of the highlights of the trip.
It was such an incredible experience that I'll forever remember.
Leaving the colonies, the paddlers move further into the protection of the island's leeward side, making it clear why Avalon was established in its serene bay.
That's the groovy thing about island life. You get to experience 4 microclimates in any given day. And for sure in Catalina, we got that experience. Coming along and knowing that civilization was just around the corner was really nice to know that after that big journey, there was something at the end that kind of like was a reward.
You come right around into Avalon Harbor, and it's just like this Mediterranean idyllic setting that I had seen pictures of. I wasn't prepared for coming around and seeing this. I felt like we'd come around the south of France or something. Couldn't wait to get to shore and walk through the town.
I thought it was going to be just kind of like a pleasure cruise. I thought it was going to be a piece of cake and placid waters, and we were just going to kind of cruise around it, and I learned otherwise for sure. That's the whole thing about adventure to me is pushing your personal boundaries and seeing what sort of fortitude you have and what you're made of. And those kind of things, when they're presented to you, are opportunities for growth.
I feel we all had the same adventure, yet we each had all our own adventures within it. We all learned something about ourselves. We all had our own take on it, our own experience that we could all truly build our own journey on.
Hi.
It's just this really unexpected little gem that we just were plucked out of the snow and placed on this island in the middle of nowhere, off the mainland. And then we're going to go back to the snow, but I'm going to be thinking about Catalina for a long time. It surprised me. It really surprised me. It just felt like we were totally somewhere different than I've been used to. It just seems that it's impossible that it's sitting out there and you get there and it's real.
Adventure is a byproduct of taking on a challenge and not backing down when it tests your limits. The rugged wilderness along the backside of Catalina provided just that, and it also provided pure beauty and serenity. The silver lining in this life is most often discovered by finding this sort of beauty in places we must seek out. We can only wonder where the next Explore project will take us, and we look forward to the journey.